Hi, welcome to this lesson. So in this lesson, we are going to be looking at a couple of things. We're going to look at the break statement, the continue statement, and something else called labels. So we already looked at break statements briefly in the switch statement. Remember, in the switch statement, after every case, there was a break, right? So what did that do? It broke out of the case and also the complete block. Right, the switch block. It broke out of the case and also the complete switch block. So that's what break statements are. So break statements, they are used to jump out of the loop or a statement or block. Any block that's written within your flower brackets like this, it's used to break out of a block like that. Okay, so it's used to break out of any loop like that. So it stops the execution of the loop, so the statement outside of that loop can get executed. Okay, so let me show you a bunch of examples. A break can be used in your loops, it can be used in your if, it can be used in switch, and it can be used in any of those statements. Okay, so let me create a statement I is equal to 1 like this, and let me say while I is less than or equal to 10. So I can give something like if I is equal to 6. Okay, I can say break. So the minute I give break, okay, what's going to happen is it's not just going to break out of the if loop. It's used to break out of the entire loop outside of it. Okay, it's not just breaks out of the if statement, it also breaks out of the opening a loop in there. So it will break out of the entire loop and it will come out. So let me give a console.log of I like this, and let me also give an I++ to increment this loop. So what I'm giving is it's going to come here and it's going to log 1 and then it's going to increment and then 2, 3, 4 for all of until it's 6. This if statement is not going to get executed because I would not be equal to 6. But the minute it gets to 6, okay, so what will happen is it'll come inside the if statement and it will completely break the loop, and it'll come out and it'll start executing the line after line number 15 like that. Okay, so that's how it works. So let me show you an example in our live preview to see how it works. Look at that. So it executed till it logged until 5, and after it reached 6, it just broke out of the statement. So this is similar to giving I is less than or equal to 5, but I haven't given that. I just used the break statement to break out of it. So it's very useful if in case of an infinite loop, it's very useful. So if I haven't given a condition in here, so this is essentially going to become an infinite loop. Another way to create an infinite loop is by giving true in here. So it's going to be true all the time, or you can give 1 in here. 1 is also true, right? So you can give something like that. So if I give true in here, it's always going to be true. So this becomes an infinite loop, right? So in conditions like that, what I can do is I can use the break statement to break the infinite loop. Okay, if I refresh, see, now it only executes until 6. If I give 10 or something like that before the break happens, let's refresh. See, it executed only until 9 because after it reaches 10, it's going to break. So this is how you can get around infinite loop as well. So similarly for your for loop, you can do for your for loop as well. Now let's go. So for let I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to 10, I++ like that, and inside of it, you can say if I is equal to 6, then you can say break. It's similar. It's similar to that, and console.log of I. That's it. So if you refresh and if you look at your console, there you go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. Okay. So break can be used to break out of a loop prematurely, that is before the condition becomes false. Okay, so before it reached 10, I broke out of the loop, so premature. Okay, so that's one. Now there's another thing, so that's your break statement, right? So that was your break statement that was used in switch and everything. And then there is the continue statement. Okay, now the continue statement, it can be used to just skip one iteration of a loop. Just that, just skip one iteration of a loop. It doesn't completely stop the execution. Okay, that doesn't happen. It doesn't completely stop the execution of the loop like break does. It just skips one iteration. If a condition is true in your if condition or something like that, just that iteration would be skipped, and then it will continue as normal. Okay, so if I look at the same example, if I create a while loop with condition like that, I is less than 10, and then I can say if I is equal to 6, then do it like this, continue. And if not, as long as that condition is not true, you can do a small console.log of I, something like that, and then also an increment after that. So what I'm basically saying is, so it'll keep executing, right? But the minute I is 6, it'll continue the loop. What it'll do is it'll just skip execution of the loop for just I is equal to 6, and it'll go back here. Okay? I++ would not, so there's a problem there. I++ would not get executed. Just that one loop would not get executed. So just that one iteration. Let's see if that works. Okay, sorry about that. There you go. It stops at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. Now that's probably because there's a problem here. Okay, it keeps continuing like this. Okay, you see it keeps running, and that problem is because I is always going to be 6. So what I can do is I can still give an I++ in here before a continue. If I is equal to 6, I can say, okay, do an I++ here, and after that continue, I can do like that. So if I do it like that, what will happen is I is going to become 7. I is going to become 7 before it continues. Okay, let me close this now and let's look at it again. Otherwise, it's going to be an infinite loop. It'll keep I is equal to 6 is always going to be true, and it'll keep going and going and going. You won't see the result, so you won't know it's happening. It'll keep going. It'll always keep continuing because it never got to this line of code at all. So you can give an I++ before continue, and then you can give continue when I is 6, so I becomes 7, and then this condition, that it breaks out of this condition. Okay, so let's look at the live preview now. All right, let's look at how it works. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but there's no 6. Okay, because at 6 we just incremented and then we continued the loop. So there's no 6, but there's 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so there's that. That's the while loop. Okay. Now, how would you do the same in a for loop? It's very easy in a for loop actually. So you don't really have to do what you did with your while loop. I'll just give I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to 10, and then I++, and then if I is equal to 6, I'd say continue. Okay, just continue, and then after that I can say console.log of I, and that's just it. Let's refresh. See, now I got it without having to give an increment before the continue statement. That's because that's how the for loop works. For the for loop, when it goes back, it is going to first increment before it checks the condition. Remember, that's how I taught you. So you don't really have to give the increment in here at all. For the while loop, you have to, because for the while loop, the increment comes inside of the code, right? But for the for loop, we just had it in here. So when it gets here, it's going to first increment and then it's going to check for your condition. So that's how it works. Alright, so that's your continue statement. So far, we have only seen breaking out of a loop and a switch statement, right? So what if we want to do for any block of code? So what if I want to do the same for any block of code? Now, what is a block of code? A block of code is a group or a list of statements that is written inside your flower brackets like this. So any list of statements that is written inside your flower brackets is a group of block of code. Okay, so your if statement is a block of code, switch is a block of code. So all of these are blocks of code. But even without any of these, just if you just write something within your flower brackets, that is also a block of code. So just like so in order to see how you can break out of any block of code, we need to use labels. Okay, so now we're going to look at labels. So to break out of any block of code inside just this, okay, just our flower brackets, we are going to use labels. So in order to do that, we need to use labels. So just like you do with your loops and conditional statements, so what you do is you give a list of statements. So you're going to just create a list of, so what are labels? So labels are, you create a list of statements and give them a name. Okay, you have to give them a name, and which is called as the label. So you have to label them, and after that enclose them in flower brackets. I'll show you how all of that works, so don't worry about that. Alright then, and then you can use break statement or continue to break out of it. List execution. Okay, halfway through the list you can break out of it using the break statement or something like that. Let's see how it works. So I'm going to create a label called a number. So this is how you create your labels. Okay, you just give the label name like this, and then you give a colon like this. So this is how you create the labels, and after that you can just give your flower brackets, and that's it. And inside of this you can give any number of statements, any number of statements at all, and that's it. Okay, so if you want to break out of a statement in the middle, what you can say is you can give break. Okay, and you can okay, if I give label name like this, you can just give break and then label name and then like this. That's it. Okay, so this is how you can use the break statement inside of your label. So first the label name, it can be anything. You don't have to declare it, you don't have to do any of those things, just the label name and then a colon, and then you can start your flower brackets. It'll work even if there is no space, and then inside of it you can give your statements, and then break label name. Okay, if you want to break out of it in the middle, break out of the statements in the middle, then you can give break and then the label name. So you're telling your browser that you want to break this particular list of statements, this particular block of code. Okay, so if you don't give a break, what will happen is it'll just execute all of the statements and it'll just come to the next line of code. That's it. It's very simple like that. Okay, let me show you an example of how this works. So let me let me encase this inside of comments, so you can copy it if you want. And then let's look at an example where I'm just going to print numbers from 1 to 10 in your console, just that. Okay, so I'm going to create a label called numbers. You can create them with any number. Just use the variable naming convention. You know the naming convention, right? You can camel casing and then underscores, your dollars, and no numbers or special characters at the start. So those naming conventions, just use that when naming your label. So numbers, inside of that I'm just going to say console.log of 1, and then console.log of 2, console.log of 3. Like that I'm going to do until 10. Okay, 3, then 4, okay, 5. That's it. Okay, so if I refresh, that's pretty much it. What happens is it came to the statement. This is the only statement that's not a comment. So it just came to the statement and it just console.logged all of those things. That's it. And I got from 1 to 10 like this. But what if I want to break after the fifth statement? Then what I do is I'd give break numbers like this. Okay. because that's the name of the label. So I'll give break numbers, and there you go, 1 2 3 4 5. That's just it. Okay, so that's how it works. That's pretty much it for this particular lesson. So don't worry about these things. Okay, these things are just it doesn't mean there's an error. If there's an error, you'd see it in your console and you won't get an output. These are just warnings that your editors give you. Most of them are not very important, so don't worry about that. Okay, so that's it. So that's your console. So sorry, that's your labels. So that's it for this particular lesson. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.